There's a mechanic that prevents champions from becoming too broken if multiple buffs are applied to them, or if they buy items that add to the loadout cards that they have that buff one aspect of their kits. And we're gonna discuss this mechanic. It's called the Diminishing Returns. So let's look at this card that Moji has. It's exactly the same in number, 40% lifesteal, as Victor's Predator card. Well, except for the activation requirement. It requires Moji to have a full stack of marks on the target for this to happen. Crunching numbers is really important, and understanding how many times you can activate a card is essential when you're building a loadout. So I'm gonna go ahead and talk in a way that might convince you that this card is bad while it's actually good. Now let me try it. Now let me get hit first while I'm using this card for a bit. Now I have 860 and then I healed for 400. My health is 1260 now. So this card, let's look at it again, gives me 40% lifesteal on that 1000 burst damage that I just did with my left mouse button as Moji. So it only healed me for 400 while I was not affected by Cauterize. So what if I was affected by Cauterize 3? That would mean I would only heal for 100. So the card translates to late game, heal for 100 each time you detonate a magic mark that's fully stacked. That's when a full star appears on someone. So this card is like pay 5 points to heal for 100. Nearly similar to this one, except this one has 3 points and it's super safe since you cannot be harmed during your magic barrier. So why even run Greater Good? Well, there's another chance to activate this card while you're out of Cauterize, and it can be used in two ways. One of them is this. No marks, I'm not gonna shoot her. And she shot my barrier and now she has marks. Now, as soon as I get out of my barrier, I can hit her and not be affected by Cauterize, since she has a slow rate of fire. However, there is a known trick on Moji, which works like this. I'm gonna need more range. I don't know if I can pull this off first time. Well, the idea is that you shoot and then shield with the barrier. If you have some distance, I don't think I can do it in here, the mark will appear as soon as you get shot. So, like this. I was not affected by Cauterize when I marked her, and I marked her twice because she kept shooting. And this technique on Moji is the reason some people call her cancer. So Moji has 1850 damage per second if she just does this. And then... But we're not here to talk about Moji. We're here to talk about Diminishing Returns. And Life Rip was the thing mentioned on that card. It wasn't heal for 400 when you hit a marked target. It was called Life Rip. So it shares this lifesteal word in it. So what exactly does Diminishing Returns means? As long as any attribute such as lifesteal reaches any point beyond 30%, the card said 40%, so we already are above the threshold of 30%. So as long as you're above 30%, you're gonna get less value. Of course, as long as there are two sources. So Just Good, where is it? What's it called? Greater Good, the card, this one. It won't apply diminishing returns to itself. It has to be two sources. So you'll always get this 40%. And when you go beyond that with two sources, as long as you're above 30%, you're not gonna get 50% since this gives 10. No, you're gonna get less. Now, it's not exactly half, but if you plug in the numbers, there's a calculator for diminishing returns online. It'll give you like 45% on tier 1, and then it will give you 50% on tier 2. And then it goes worse, where 30% lifesteal here, which costs you 600, will only give you 3% more lifesteal. Now, Moji is one of those champions that do buy life rip, and she buys that, of course, after she gets cauterize. Now, the thing is about this is you don't ever buy life rip 3, no matter what champion you're playing, except for Koga, which does not have built-in life rip. Now, let's go ahead and talk about why life rip might be important in the meta. Now, I'm gonna change the champion right here to Corvus, the new support, and we're gonna look at this card, Grand Design. For free from the start of the match, anyone who you mark as Corvus gets 25% lifesteal, which means that, for example, if I was willing to tell my team to spend 200 credits to buy life rip 1, I will reach the threshold of 30% life rip without getting affected by diminishing returns. So people might run this at 4 and they're not playing Corvus wrong. They just want you to pay 200 credits so that they can give you more speed and a little bit more healing. Of course, they're gonna have this card at 4 and this card at 4 too. And this will be 4. This card is at 5. No, not a problem, we're not here to talk about Corvus anyway, but he will be one of the champions that will activate diminishing returns a lot. So let's go ahead and see one more champion that has the same attribute of lifesteal, which is Damba. He has this card, VenomusGourd, which can reach the threshold by itself. If this was 5, this would be 30%. But of course, it's only if you're standing in the gourd. You gotta be standing here to get any benefit out of it. So it's not like Corvus, which just puts a mark on you and that's that. You have free life rip and can do it on 2 targets simultaneously. No, you have to be standing in his gourd. Now, why is diminishing returns important? Some champions, for example Inara, new players seem to ban her if they're playing ranked because she just doesn't die, because they don't buy cauterize. This is my loadout because I really love bullying new players. Sorry. Okay. So what is the idea behind diminishing returns? Now, this card says that it reduces your damage by 20% while you're standing in this. However, if we look at the base kit, Earthen Guard, which is bound to my right mouse button right now, gives me, the details aren't really shown here, it gives me 30% free DR without using the Mother's Grace legendary card. The legendary card makes it 50%. So here is the deal about the diminishing returns effect and the stacks or doesn't stack. This is kind of a hidden stat in the game. Now, the talent does stack with itself. This is the same ability being used as the one mentioned in the talent. So it stacks with itself. It becomes 50%. If you're not playing Mother's Grace, it's 30% and not 50. Now, what if I use both? I just applied 50% and a diminishing returns effect for 20%. Now, we have to plug the numbers to know the details about how much that's gonna give us, and in practice, it's barely gonna be 60%. It's gonna be a little bit less, like around 57. And this is why you don't just do this. You don't do this on Inara. You're not gonna be invincible. That's not how you stop dying. Okay? So how exactly are you supposed to play around this limitation?